Okay, so here's how to play Ashe in Season 14. Ashe is a marksman champion that actually solves a lot of the problems people are having with the ADC role in its current state. They complain that marksmen would have no agency and they would merely get to exist as a minion in the games of the other 4 roles. But this couldn't be further from the truth for Ashe. Yes, Ashe is your typical marksman champion, huge damage over longer fights, yet squishy and immobile, so essentially one-shot fodder for the enemy when you're out of position. However, Ashe also brings a lot of utility and playmaking potential to the table. You, as the Ashe player, have access to one of the strongest engage tools in the game, Ashe's ultimate Enchanted Crystal Arrow. Usually ADCs have to be reactive in nature, playing around the situations created by your teammates. And this is where the frustration comes from. You feel like you have no real agency yourself, since if your team fails to make something happen, there's nothing you can do. But Ashe is different, of course. She always has agency, since she can decide when to fight and when to disengage. With good game sense, you as the Ashe player can lead your team and call the shots by firing your ultimate in well-chosen situations. Of course, developing these skills and the necessary game sense takes a lot of time. There are a lot of factors when it comes to decision making in League of Legends, and the process will be frustrating and hard. Missing even just one ult on Ashe in a crucial moment can cost you the game, since without ult, Ashe is very exploitable for the enemy. However, if you are serious about improving at League of Legends, you can make the learning process much easier for yourself by hiring a private challenger coach with my sponsor Solo Queue Solution. Most people who are hard stuck in solo queue cannot improve because they are unable to pinpoint where they are going wrong. Many of them choose the easy path and blame their team, or even start seeing ghosts like the made-up concept of a so-called loser's queue, but at the end of the day, League of Legends is a skill and many games you lose were in fact carryable. But your challenger coach will work with you in one-on-one sessions, showing you exactly what you need to do to improve and take your gameplay to the next level. They are so good at teaching the skill of League of Legends, in fact, that they guarantee you that you reach Diamond after taking the full program. For more information and a booking link to get your first session, check out the description. Anyway, while Ashe requires a lot of in-game decision making, you of course also need to know about optimal runes and items to unlock the champion's full potential. So we'll go over that first real quick before then diving into the analysis and talking about game plans. Ashe's most consistent rune page is Lethal Tempo, Presence of Mind, Legend Bloodline and Coup de Grace, with Approach Velocity and Biscuit Delivery secondary. Ashe's fighting is really always death by 1,000 cuts. She wants to auto-attack over and over, and she has great sticking power, so she can actually do that with her passive. And since you're that good at forcing the enemy into longer exchanges, Lethal Tempo is a natural fit. Lethal Tempo rewards you for attacking more often, and Ashe the character itself also does that because you need to stack her Q, so she gets more powerful the longer the fight goes on, and Lethal Tempo is a great help in these situations. Yes, it is a scaling rune, and Ashe's early game is not the best because you especially also need your level 6 power spike, but man, with attack speed items and on-hit effects, this rune goes crazy in the late game. There are some people who experiment with Hail of Blades and stuff, but Lethal Tempo is really the most consistent. Now, being on the precision path, Presence of Mind is your option in the next row. While Ashe is mostly auto-attack based, she still wants to spam her W in fights and also always needs enough mana for her ultimate, which is her most important tool, as you might know. Some very dedicated players are quite confident in their Ashe mana management and take Triumph here, or even overheal some of them, but Presence of Mind is the most consistent option and most high elo players still pick this rune, and you should too. Now Ashe would really like Legend Alacrity in the next row because she is so synergistic with auto attacks, yet in her current item builds, you can't really fit in lifesteal too easily, so Legend Bloodline is kind of a necessary evil. It is a slow stacking rune, doesn't do much for you in the early and mid game, but the value in the late game is quite nice, because again it makes your item build more flexible, and Ashe really wants non-lifesteal items, as you're about to find out. Coup de Grace in the last slots is more like process of elimination. Ashe doesn't really want to be in the middle of the fray, so last stand doesn't make sense, and Cutdown is a niche option which you can take into very tanky compositions, but Ashe also buys a lot of HP most of the time, so there is a little bit of an anti-synergy going on with this rune, so Coup de Grace is just the default choice, but Cutdown can be taken in some matchups. Now for the secondary path, Inspiration is by far the best in my opinion. Approach Velocity just does everything for this champion. Every single auto attack on an enemy will trigger this rune, making chasing and sticking to the target, stacking Lethal Tempo and applying your on-hit effects even easier. The sheer value of Approach Velocity alone pushes you onto this path, and the next best rune here to take is Biscuit Delivery, fixing your early mana, allowing you to do a little bit more with your W. But this is not set in stone. Yes, Approach Velocity is very valuable and many people have great success with this rune, but some players value Ashe's ultimate cooldown a little more, go for Ultimate Hunter on the Domination path. It's I would say a thing of personal preference, but if you look at it objectively speaking, approach velocity is just so powerful that it's very hard to justify any other path. However, keep in mind that Ultimate Hunter is very valuable on this champion, so you could make an argument for Domination secondary instead. Okay, let's talk about the item build next. Well, Doran's item starts as always a must, so Doran's Blade for Ashe, and then your core build should be in pretty much every game, Berserker's Greaves, Kraken Slayer, and Trinity Force. Getting Berserker's Greaves as fast as possible is very important for a kiting-oriented, immobile champion like Ashe. It's also the reason why you don't want magical footwear in your rune page, because you would then not be able to buy early Berserker's Greaves. With upgraded boots you can already do quite a bit, also because it provides a lot of attack speed, enabling you to stack lethal tempo quite consistently. But your first real item should always be Kraken Slayer. Kraken Slayer is way too important, you need actual payoff for attacking the same target over and over, and Kraken Slayer is the item designed to do exactly that. To be honest with you, Trinity Force next is not as mandatory as Kraken Slayer first, but it is still a very consistent option, doing pretty much everything Ashe wants to do. The extra HP is quite nice because you don't get one-shot as often anymore, also you're immobile, so HP is inherently more valuable since you're an easy target. The item provides movement speed on attack, another synergy with Ashe's passive and sticking power, and of course the damage, the attack speed, all stats Ashe cares about. The item also provides ability haste, which is a little bit odd on an auto-attack based marksman, but Ashe's ultimate has such high value that just for this spell, ability haste is already worth it. Additionally, Ashe's W has a very low inherent cooldown, which you want to weave in between your auto-attacks every so often, so you will proc the Sheen effect quite frequently as well. Now your cookie-cutter late-game options would be Terminus, Wit's End, and Guardian Angel. Once more, Ashe has this death by 1,000 cuts approach, so Terminus with its attack speed and on-hit effect is the most logical choice. It works very well with all the attack speed you already have, plus the extra resistances it provides also makes it even harder for the enemy to punish you for being immobile. Quite funnily though, Wit's End and Guardian Angel provide magic-resistant armor, rounding out your defensive profile even better, Wit's End also with the Tenacity, which is quite important, and Guardian Angel with the Revive passive. All stats Ashe cares about in the late game because you don't want to die in the late game. A dead AD carry in the late game can lose your team the game outright. Additionally, Wit's End is a huge damage boost in the late game as well, because of the on-hit damage and the extra attack speed. Just a phenomenal, well-rounded Ashe build you could go for every single game. But of course, there are alternatives. You can also make use of Ashe's crit scalings a little more. Not only her damage gets increased by crit, but also her slow ratio, so Runan's Hurricane and Infinity Edge are nice options. Another item that certainly deserves to be mentioned is Blade of the Ruined King. While the slow on this item is completely useless on Ashe because it will always be overwritten by her passive, the on-hit effect, the lifesteal, and the stat profile are quite good. If you choose to go Legend Alacrity instead of Legend Bloodline, this is the item you must rush because it's the only lifesteal item Ashe can realistically buy without gimping her power. Another interesting option in my opinion is Experimental Hexblade, because Ashe's ultimate is so inherently valuable. The stat profile is decent enough, you can buy it after Trinity Force and you won't hurt your damage too much, especially if the enemy isn't too tanky, and the extra playmaking potential by getting more ults and also being more powerful when you cast ult is worth quite a bit, but truth be told it's quite difficult to fit this item into your build most of the time. Okay, so this is really all you must know about runes and items, so let's now jump into the analysis. During the lane phase, Ashe has a lot of agency due to her long auto-attack range. Having 600 range while most other marksmen only get 550 makes a very big difference, allowing you to stand your ground even against lane bullies such as MissFortune. In fact, the Ashe MissFortune matchup is actually slightly in Ashe's favor because of this, despite MissFortune being one of the best bot laners in the game right now due to how strong her lethality items are. Ashe's more attack speed focused build, however, also means that you will outscale these lane bully champions. Your damage potential is much higher than theirs in late game teamfights, so no pressure on you. You can just farm it up. The burden of making something happen in lane is always on the lane bully, and you both discourage and react to such plays by zoning with your range. In any case, while Ashe's range is nice to have, her biggest selling point is of course her ultimate. The mere threat of your crystal arrow is so huge that high elo players will sacrifice an entire summoner spell slot just for taking cleanse essentially, making their lanes even more passive because they lack a combat summoner, which means safer scaling for you. And if you play in low elo and the enemy doesn't take cleanse, even better, one single arrow can lead to a huge engage, allowing you to snowball with kills even. However, as an AD carry, you cannot rely on utility alone. You also need damage to carry, but Ashe's utility is a lot of her power budget. Where other champions have damage, she has slows and stuns, and this is why Kraken Slayer first item is so important. It allows you to actually threaten the enemy with DPS once your utility leads to an opening. Of course, Ashe's damage can only be unlocked when you can fight over an extended period of time, which is why enchanter supports are so good with her. Additionally, these supports also fix the issue of Ashe being an easy immobile target. Needless to say that without Melios' help, Ashe would have died a million times in this sequence alone. But all the shields and disengage tools actually make it very hard for the enemy to take advantage of your lack of mobility, and enchanter support can bail you out in most situations. And all of Ashe's qualities are naturally also quite valuable during the mid and late game. Your range allows you to stay far in the back so you can have impact even during sketchy situations without the need to overcommit to anything stupid. Your W and your ultimate are excellent zoning tools and safety tools, making it very easy for you to probe the enemy before deciding whether to fight or rather retreat. And that's the beauty of utility ADCs really. Where other marksmen have to hope their team peels for them, you can at least to a certain point just do it yourself. This of course means that playing Ashe well requires very good decision making, since a champion with engaged tools is, as I've said, always also a shot caller. Please have a close look at this situation here and try to understand the underlying logic of Ashe's plays. Unsurprisingly, a key moment in this sequence is this Ashe ultimate right here. Rammus is the one engaging, but by ulting Cassiopeia instead of him, the engage gets neutered as Rammus now has no follow-up. From here, Ashe simply attacks the closest target, ideally fighting front to back, staying as safe as possible because, again, you need to play for longer fights to actually unlock your damage. And using your ultimate like that is, by the way, one of the easiest ways to see instant improvements in your Ashe win rate. Many low elo players just fire their ult at will, hoping for an epic cross-map play. And needless to say that is quite inconsistent, and going for guaranteed ults during actually important fights is much better. Missing your ultimate on Ashe is a very big deal, so the quote-unquote riskiest ults you should go for are ults like this one. As you can see, the enemy are trapped in a choke point, making it impossible for them to dodge despite them not yet being fully engaged in a fight. So you, as the Ashe player, can just press R to force a fight, since even if the enemy sees it coming, it would at least force out an opponent's summoner spell. Guaranteed value. Really, choke points are your friend. They make enemy movement super telegraphed, which is your chance to strike and make progress for the team. Ashe really is one of those marksmen whose qualities go beyond just dealing damage. Every single decision you make has huge impact on the outcome of the game, so a good fundamental understanding of how to play macro in League of Legends is mandatory if you want to win. But of course you can always consult my League of Legends macro guide as a refresher by clicking the link on your screen right there.